Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to another absolutely incredible and phenomenal episode of Empowered Conversations, where I have amazing conversations with extraordinary people out doing beautiful things in the world in service to others. And let me tell you guys, that is none other than my guest today, Meliea Black. Oh God, I'm so excited I can't even talk. I'm tripping over my words. My God, I was at the gym today and I was telling somebody how excited I was. I was literally jumping up and down. He's like, OMG, I can feel your energy, girl. But y'all, I mean, I'm telling you right now, this subject is so true to my heart, my mind. This is something I have been living for over 20 years. Yeah, over 20 years now. And you know what? I may lose some followers. I may lose some fans. Some of you who adore me may go, oh, I don't know if I can handle Stephanie anymore. But this is part of my purpose. I feel it in my heart. I feel it in my soul that it's part of my purpose to be out here in the world talking about these subjects and bringing this concept of awareness that I brought into my life to the world, whether you embrace it or not. Because the way I see it, those who mind don't matter. Those who matter sure won't mind. So guys, with that being said, I'm going to introduce my most fabulous guest who I've been following for 2 freaking years. Her name is Meliea, and Meliea is a queer ex-evangelical mystic midwife, moon maven, intuition activist. She has spent more than a few years trying to smash the patriarchy and bulldoze life so she can get out from under the heaviness of that influence. Meliea is also the host of the ExEvangelical anti-devotional podcast, or in the description. That is an incredible podcast. At least I resonate with it and love listening to her. The problem was with her demolition of those influences that she had grown up, that she was born into and grew up with, just left her standing in the middle of a pile of rubble, wondering what to do next. In order to break these cycles and patterns of influence in our lives, we have to deconstruct and reconstruct simultaneously. And boy, do I know all about that. And that's with anything in life. When you're shifting a paradigm of your thinking, your mindset, and a new way of being in the world. And this is where Meliea comes in. She helps you see the patterns, deconstruct them, then reconstruct something authentic and amazing. And I'll share my own experiences with working with her. Imagine going after the things that you desire with confidence and peace. Imagine moving toward the things you want in life without guilt. Imagine building a solid foundation, a belief that is authentic and true and holds you up, lifts you up instead of tearing you down. Meliea wants to show you how to develop your own intuition and tune into the inner knowing so that you can get unstuck and move confidently into the things that you are passionate about in life. Yes, it is possible. You learn to embody and embrace radical self-trust. Holy cow, that's been huge for me. So join us today, guys, as we talk all about what it was like for both of us growing up in the church, the influence it had on our lives, and the deconstruction away from it to something so much better, a lot more whole, inclusive of everyone, all people around the globe, and all around more loving and including radical self-love. So guys, drum roll, please help me in welcoming Meliea Black, the intuition activist. Woo! What's up, girl?
Hi.
How are you?
Good, good.
Oh my God, I love your shirt. Let me see. What does your shirt say? I love it.
Ex-evangelical, thank God.
Thank God. Love it, girl. Oh my God.
And I
Meliea,
thank her every day.
thank her. Oh yes, it's so funny. If no one's around to bless me when I sneeze, I say, God, bless me. And I do bless people when they sneeze too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's funny, I've been wanting you on for so long. And, I resonate so fervently with everything, well, maybe not everything. I mean, we can't agree 100%, but you have brought so much value to my life in me allowing you to do so, and me embracing what, 2 years ago, right around 2 years ago, maybe a little bit further than that, when I started following you and being, and then subscribing to your groups and subscribing and just learning so much about what you had to offer. And I've learned so much. And the biggest thing for me is I've always been very intuitive, but there was something about trusting my intuition that I wasn't as good at. And that is the biggest thing, trusting my intuition, trusting that all the stuff that I've been through and will continue to go through is all there for me and part of, me bringing my purpose to the world. And I just can't say how much insurmountable ways that being a part of what you have to offer has done for my life.
Thank you so much for saying that. And I feel
Yeah.
like I should be at a pep rally right now with that intro that you gave me. I was like, I did not bring my pom poms, but I feel like I should have them.
Woo! 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 Woo!
So that was awesome. Yeah, I mean, that intuition, that self-trust, this is the core of
Mhm.
everything. Our intuition is not this thing that's like fairy dust that's sprinkled upon us
Right.
and suddenly we have it. Like, it is
Mhm.
us. Intuition
Mhm.
is us. There's a combination of instinct and intuition, and our instincts are more of the physical things that we do or that our brain
Mhm.
knows to do. But then we have that intuition that is that where we tap into, it's that gut feeling, right?
Mhm.
Intuition is the reason they tell you, like on a test, like don't go back and
Yeah.
redo, like go with your first gut
Mhm.
instinct. And because it's almost always right. And
Mhm.
people have said to me, well, like, I followed my intuition one time and it didn't work out, like it was
Right.
wrong. And I'm like, I don't know that our intuition is ever wrong, but sometimes the way, not everything that we desire and want is what we're supposed to have. So sometimes we move towards something intuitively and, it doesn't work out the way we thought it did or thought it would or the way we wanted it to. Um, but we learned some self-trust in that,
Mhm.
in the journey. And
And
often that journey will lead us to what we actually do want and need, or to
yes.
discover what we actually want. So, I don't know that I feel like it's ever wrong, but
It's like what you just said. So the intuition was correct, and you were supposed to make said choice, but that said choice led to what was supposed to be the best outcome based upon what you desire, because it's going to take you to something that you're supposed to have.
right. There's been so many
Yeah.
times that I've embarked on journeys toward something that I wanted and realized, 3/4 of the way there, I don't want this as much as I thought I did.
Mhm.
Um, so uh that in itself was intuitive, because sometimes,
Mhm.
we need to sort of cancel out some of the options, and sometimes the only way to do that is to move toward them and realize, like, oh, nah, this is not it. And that's just part of like living life. But our desire to know, that we know that we know, and to be affirmed in the knowing,
Mhm.
and for somebody to tell us, like, yes, I bless this, I affirm this, this is the way. Our desire for that is really strong. So
Mhm.
we often don't trust that voice. We don't live in a society where we trust our intuition anymore. We don't
Right.
need to, right? Like, we can Google everything. Everything's at our fingertips. So we don't really have to use our intuition much anymore, or we don't think we do.
Mhm.
I think we've all realized, though, with the onset of the pandemic in 2020, that in the absence, like, how uncomfortable we are with just not knowing, with
Right.
not having the facts.
Yeah.
right? Everybody wants the facts. Everybody thinks they know the facts because somebody else has said them. Somebody else that they
Mm-hmm.
respect has
Mm-hmm.
reported them or whatever. But what we didn't hear a lot of was people just going within and being like, what is my role in this?
Right.
How do I care for myself? How do I care for people around me? How
Mm-hmm.
do I intuitively do that? Rather than, I'm in this camp or I'm in this camp and this is what I'm doing and because so and so said so and all that kind of stuff. So we sadly we're still not anywhere close to really getting in touch with our true self and our own voice. And we can see that through, if you ever get on a thread on social media anywhere, uh, you'll see that people say the same things. Like several people will say the exact same sentences. And that's because we're not moving from our intuition. We're repeating. We're
Mm-hmm.
repeating what we've learned and been told. And we feel
Yes.
comfortable doing that
Yes.
because look
Yes.
at all these other people that are saying it with us.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, we're afraid to be the one to be like, you guys, except me. I'm never afraid to be that one.
I think a
Apparently.
lot, and you know what? And you know what, Malia, you're going to laugh at me. I was so excited that I forgot to bring you on Instagram.
Oh, I'm
Oh
sitting
my
here
God.
watching you.
God, I was like so damn okay. Oh, there she is. Yes, there you are. Go live with me, Meliea Black.
There you
You should have
go.
gotten a request. I just jumped right in. Sorry about that,
So
folks.
funny.
There you are.
Here I am. Oh, just go
Okay, so now we're
really.
going to have to turn our volumes down so we don't echo because I can hear myself echoing on through your phone.
All right, volume
There we
down.
go.
Hopefully, everybody can still hear me on
Okay, so
Instagram.
Joe Artman Fur, we have a comment. She says, "I call it my spidey sense." Love it,
Yes,
girl.
that's what
Yeah,
it is. I say that all
yeah.
the time. I'll be like, my spidey senses are tingling. Um,
Well,
so
I'll tell you, yesterday, y'all, I have to tell my own personal story about this intuition thing now, because I'd been asking Meliea for quite some time and we could never make it work. And yesterday, I was watching one of her Instagram funny ass videos. And I'm sitting there in my sacred space. I'm drinking my coffee and something, because I didn't have a guest this week. I had not, I don't, I hadn't scheduled a guest for this week, and I was kind of overwhelmed and kind of beside myself with grief and angst over it. And I'm sitting there, and because my girl Siobhan, my co-host for Food Therapy, says, "Oh, girl, you'll get one, you'll get one." So I'm sitting there, and I was watching your video, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I'm laughing my freaking ass off, and I'm going, you know what? Something tells me my spidey sense, Joe Artman Fur, says to reach out to Meliea. But again, I was like, I was waffling. I was waffling because again, I didn't want you to feel like obligated or you know what I'm saying, or feel pressured. So I'm waffling. I'm like, but my intuition, that spidey sense was bah, bah, bah. And I said, I'm gonna do it. And I was like, I'm gonna send her a voice text so she hears my voice, so she hears my heart. And I did, and bam, you were like, yep, I think I can make that work. And hence here we are.
isn't it funny though how you had the intuitive
Yeah.
leading, but you immediately questioned, like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know, is it? And the thing is, you because we don't have the self trust, we don't have trust. So you were worried about like my feelings about it and
Feelings.
stuff, and you're not trusting me to deal with my own feelings. So
Right.
when we
Exactly.
don't trust ourselves, we don't really trust other
Right.
people.
Yeah.
And of course, none of us are perfect, and there's no
No, good
time that
God,
we
no.
arrive at like
Mhm.
always trusting ourselves. We're always going to question because we're human.
Yes.
But if we can learn to act on that more often, things would be a lot different in the world than they are right now.
Right.
Um, and I know
Abso-freaking-lutely.
that
Mhm.
that I said, I think at the end of 2019 when you were in my group, I said something is coming. And I didn't know what it was. And I was like, it's going to require a collective mentality. And all of my work was kind of focused around that. And I didn't even really know why. I'm like, why am I so obsessed with
Right.
this?
You didn't know the
And,
details.
you know, and then boom, here we were. And,
Mhm.
I guess it's been heartbreaking to me to see yeah, I guess I had a vision in my mind when I realized, like, oh, there's something here for us to come together on. And then I had this vision in my mind of us all doing that. And then it didn't happen. Like the world just divided, and the United States divided. And that has been so heavy on me,
Mhm.
just on my empath heart, to
Mhm.
see the lack of coming together and taking care of each other.
Right.
But it has also brought up a lot of wounds for me. And we've talked about this
Mhm.
from religion and from fundamental
Mhm.
Christianity that I grew up in, because a lot of the opposing voices are in that camp. And
Mhm.
so it's been like a constant, you know constant things popping back up for me, uh,
Mhm.
to have to like work through and reprocess again, which is a good thing.
Absolutely.
But it's been a
Right.
lot,
Mhm.
realizing like, oh my gosh, I felt this way at one time. I think the
Yes.
hardest part of looking at it is realizing that I was there. Like,
Right.
you can get mad at all the people and their nonsense, but I did that nonsense.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah,
did
and
it.
it's almost that it's almost as though you had a literal fish flop out of water, complete dichotomy of experience, or I'm sorry, an experience that created that dichotomy of mindset and heart set. And Malia, like, I know your story, but I want you to share with my audience, like, like, growing up that way, but what was the catalyst, the epiphany, the moment, like all that brought you to boom, to have that fish flop out of water dichotomy mindset and heart set? What created that?
Yeah. So it was almost exactly 8 years ago,
Hmm.
August 22nd, that I was driving down here local in Charlotte, 485, which everybody goes like 80 miles an hour on 485. And I was driving to go pick up my middle child from school. And a guy came off of an exit ramp onto 485 and just started like deciding, hey, I'm taking this lane whether you're in it or not. And so he came across the lanes and clipped the front of my car, which then just, I'm going 75 miles an hour, just spun my car out of control. He kept driving, but my car just kept flipping. And
Right.
it was a it was a wreck that no one really should have survived. Nobody else was with me, thankfully. But during that wreck, while I was in the middle of it, I had an experience that I can't really fully explain. And uh, and as a Virgo, that makes me crazy. But I had an experience I couldn't explain, where I felt the most peace I had ever experienced in my entire life. I knew I was going to be fine. I was
Hmm.
completely calm. My body was completely relaxed. I didn't even realize things were as bad as they were until after my car stopped moving and all the people ran up to me like, oh my gosh. And I realized I couldn't get out of my car because I was pinned in. And
Right.
so, like, it was, and I was fine. I had a few cuts on my hands and a cut on my
Hmm.
eyebrow, but I was fine. I didn't understand what everybody was getting so upset about because I couldn't see my car. And later, I looked at pictures of it, and it was a pretty. I mean, I had to be cut out of my car,
Yeah.
um, and everybody knew that I just. They were like, there were 5 fire trucks there, 2 ambulances. They were getting ready to life flight me on a helicopter. And I'm like, you will not. I used to have a fear of flying. I'm like, you will not get me. You will have to chase my ass down 485 to get me on a helicopter. I'm telling you right now, I will not get on that and be taken to the hospital. And they were, because there's a time frame. They like to have you there from the time of
Oh
trauma to
yeah.
the time, you
Hmm.
get in the ER bay. And I'm like, I don't care what time of day it is and how much traffic there is. You are not putting my ass in a helicopter. And so we ended up going in the ambulance. But they all just assumed I had to have had massive internal injuries because of the mangled mess that my car was. So they kept talking about me during the wreck, after the wreck, like I couldn't hear them because they kept forgetting I was conscious. And so people kept having to remind them, like, hey, she's conscious, she can
She's
hear
right here.
you.
Yeah.
Because they're saying
Yeah.
things like, bleeding out internally, and concussions and things like that. But I didn't have any of that. I was actually fine. But that experience, that calm that I'd experienced in that moment, I was like, wait a minute, I've been trying to get that my whole fucking life. And how in the world did I find it as I'm like flipping through the air in a Honda Civic? Like, what the hell? How is that where you find peace? But I did. So I knew if I could find it there in that moment, that I would be able to find it again. And that began the deconstruction, because that experience did not match with the religious teachings I had been brought up with. It was very actually counter to those experiences,
Right.
So I stood in my hospital room that night, and I said to myself, like, and I wasn't supposed to be out of bed, but I said to myself, like, I don't feel like I belong anymore. I feel different. I don't feel like me. And that never stopped. That never went away. And a new me truly emerged, what I believe was the authentic me. Or is the authentic me. But,
Yes.
it just began there and has been just continuously going now for 8 years. And there's been other catalysts along the way because
Yeah.
it's been a process. So, watching the Christian response to Donald Trump kind of sealed the deal for me, because I'd kind of been like, okay, maybe I'll be a progressive Christian. Maybe I hang on to some of it, and I'm not saying anything's wrong with that, because for some people, they can interact in that type of thing, and it's very honoring to them. It wasn't
Right.
to me, though. And so, the time when I realized it was all a construct all along was the election. And so that kind of sealed the deal for me. Like, no, this is not, I want nothing to do with this anymore. And so that was it. And then it's just been, from there, it's been like layers upon layers of unlearning, undoing, and dismantling. And
So you said that you were trying, like, it sounds like you were trying to hold on to some of that which you had known all of your life, understandably so, because that still, while there were all these, and we'll, get you into sharing some of the stuff that you dealt with in growing up in church, but it's like there was some good that you experienced through that type of life growing up, but it's almost there, and there was a sense of comfort. But then you woke up and realized, like, whoa, while there may be, at least this is maybe what I'm hearing, because this is my personal experience, guys, is that while there might be some good, there's not bad and all bad and everything, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, love thy neighbor as thyself. That's about it. If you truly sit down and read the Bible, which is what I did, looking for answers, and had, because I had questions and was like, what? You see all that's been done in the name of organized religion to condone women having no rights, condone slavery, just inhibit the progress. If anything, the Bible has been used over and over and over and over to inhibit the progress that we now experience. But yet we do have so much farther to go.
yeah, for sure.
And yeah. And so I remember, I've been a part of your group through, I remember one of the first times I ever saw you on Facebook, and I don't know how, we were friends probably through your brother TR, and then my girlfriend, I have like several friends that are friends with him. And I remember being on one of your lives, and you were like, how do we know each other? How, and so, but I first was introduced to you when you were reading cards, online, and I jumped on. I was like, oh yeah, I want a card read, you know, and while I consider myself a very spiritual atheist, I still that my spirituality comes in where things like that make sense to me because it's all about revealing something that intuitively is speaking to me.
Right.
And I don't
Yeah.
think, yeah. So go ahead. Yeah.
Well,
So,
cards are so I tell people that reading tarot and oracle cards is like my daily devotionals that I used to
hmm
have as a Christian. It's where you sit down, and you look at as a Christian, it was you looked at a passage of scripture or you had a book that had a
right.
devotional and you took time to think about how does that apply to my life today? How does that what is speaking to me from this right now? That's a beautiful thing. So I just do
Absolutely.
that with cards. That's if there's really no difference. So when I do it for myself, it's like my devotional. I do it every morning. I pull at least 3 cards for myself and I say, okay, what is speaking to me from these cards today? When I pull cards for somebody else, that's like a Bible study.
hmm
Remember when
hmm
you used to get
Yeah.
together in Christians, so you get together like a women's Bible study or a couples Bible study or whatever the hell you were in at that
Well,
time.
haven't, yeah.
And so everybody would get together and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Everybody is studying like a passage of scripture or a story or something like that. And everybody's sharing what it means to them
hmm
and you're learning from each other. So I hear what you're saying about the scripture and I take some from that. Then you hear what I say about it and you take some from that. And card reading is the same way. So when I read for other people, the word psychic, that's fine. I'm good with that. I think we're all psychic.
Yes, I agree.
But it's like it's us getting together over the cards and me saying, here's what I'm seeing and what my intuition is saying. How does that resonate with you?
hmm
Um, and the thing that I want to do in my card readings is I want to bring it back to you.
Right.
I don't want you to hear what I'm saying and hang on my words to get like, is this a yes? Is it a no? Is it, what is it? I just want to be, a guide, just like in a Bible
hmm
study group. I just want to be a
hmm
guide to give you a perspective that might click
Right.
and help you to get the clarity that you need. And that's how we help each other in the world, right? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. And, going back to something you said about seeing how majority of Christians were reacting to Trump and the things that he was saying, and then also with 2020, we did have a collective, at least on the earth, a collective experience, whether we want to see it that way or not. We were all dealing with this virus, this COVID, and how you chose to see what was going on, how you chose to react, that was an individual, that was on your own individual experience. But what I loved is that the communities that I'm a part of, yours being one of them, is that we similarly did see that we are all a part of everything and one another. And whereas, just for your example, it seems that, and this isn't 100% either, that think or that follow Donald Trump and have this mindset, and I like to call it the trance of scarcity. And have you ever read the book The Trance of Scarcity?
I have not.
It is a phenomenal book, but it literally, I mean, and majority of people actually, us alike, live in this trance of there's not enough. That, I mean, think about the toilet paper situation. The guy, and if you watch, TV and there are commercials, what are most commercials conditioning you to believe? That everything is on sale. There's a sale. Everything's at a discount. You can, and it subconsciously, I think, imprints, especially around money, limiting beliefs that I can't have unless there's something, unless it's made more affordable.
Right. Well,
And yeah, go ahead.
okay. Well, I was just going to kind of piggyback on that and say that is something that spiritually evolved in me as a business
Yeah.
owner over time. Is, I was saying, I was talking about scarcity and things like that, but if you go to any kind of online business course or anything right now, they're going to tell you you have to create scarcity in your ideal people in order for
Yes.
them to buy from you. And
You've
I'm
only
like,
got 3
and
days.
these are business people who were teaching mystics and stuff, like people like me, to run a business. And I'm like, wait a minute, wait a minute, you're telling me to create the
Yeah.
very thing that I'm trying to help people not have.
Right.
What the fuck?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And that's when I realized that you can leave Christianity, but you may find yourself you can make a religion out of anything.
Absolutely. Mhm.
And so you can find yourself in another set of beliefs that are
Mhm.
equally as strict, equally as exclusive, equally as
Mhm.
elite, and I did it several times. I've
Mhm.
popped out of them a couple of times where, like, oh gosh, how did I get there in that? And because we're just kind of drawn to that as humans. We really want to belong to something.
Yeah.
And so uh, we tend to group together based on beliefs and shared interests. So it's really easy for it to happen. And as I've told you before, I'm an equal opportunity insulter.
I
I
know.
don't just insult Christianity. I insult a lot of different spiritual things too.
Mhm. And I appreciate your authenticity around that, and uh, ability to allow yourself to be vulnerable and express that. I mean, because we're not perfect. We're never gonna be perfect. And, I can be a crazy bitch. I can be an asshole. I can, be nasty. And it's like, okay, but is that the majority of what that I am? No, absolutely not. But it doesn't mean that that's also not a part of me. We all have our darkness. We all have our lightness, and it's about understanding that. So talk to me about, like, the deconstruct. Like, I want to talk about the deconstruction, and like what you're doing, and what does that all mean to you? And
So, deconstruction for me, I mean, everybody's a little bit different, but I was born into fundamental Christianity. So, I
hmm
knew nothing different. And I'll be 50 in a couple of weeks. So, I was growing up in that environment when there was no internet. There was
me
no,
too.
if your parents, your church and all was your world,
Yep.
and if you weren't allowed into the outside world, you didn't know what was out there. So, I grew up in that. And um, I didn't realize it probably until a few years ago how much trauma I carried from that. The biggest trauma being you either believe or you go to
hmm
hell.
hmm
And having to
hmm
constantly negotiate in my mind that there were people who were going to burn for eternity.
hmm
And that was the biggest part that had to deconstruct. When I was 9 years old, you can still find this on YouTube. When I was 9 years old, we had a chapel service in school where we watched a movie called The Burning Hell by this crazy pastor.
hmm
Um,
Writing it
and
down.
it was like it was one of those Christian B movie things, but it was basically this guy dies in a motorcycle accident and goes to hell. So it was all these biblical representations of what hell would be like. It was like a horror movie for a 9 year
hmm
old, 10-year old. It was a horror movie. I wasn't even allowed to watch horror movies. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
allowed
we
to
weren't
watch
either.
this one. And that, I mean, you want to talk about trauma. And then on the heels of that of course, in Christianity, you're working to be saved. depending on which denomination
Right.
you're in, whether you can ever lose yourself, nobody can agree on that. But then the other part is that you don't want to be, quote, left behind. So I grew up in an independent Baptist church that taught rapture theology, that God was going to come like a thief in the night and just take us all out, and our clothes would be left behind, and our, like we would all just disappear suddenly, and then the Antichrist comes in, and you got to get the mark of the beast and all that stuff. And all that was terrifying. And we also had to watch movies about that. And I'm not talking about the Left Behind series with Jerry Jenkins. I'm not talking about those. Those were like Disney movies compared to the movies I had to watch. It was called The Thief in the Night and This Distant Thunder. Those were the two, like, old, they were made in the 70s. And
The Thief in the Night. I'm writing all this down.
Yeah. So these movies, if you didn't believe in God, if you got left behind and you didn't like convert during the tribulation, then, but you died for your faith. And so in this movie, people were having their heads cut off with guillotines. And I'm 9. I'm 10.
Can't watch Amityville Horror, or Freddy.
Or Jaws. I couldn't even watch Jaws. That was like the big movie at the time. I wasn't even allowed to watch it. But I could watch this, and it terrified me. I had nightmares. I would lay in bed at night wondering, like, what if I'm not doing it right and I get left behind, and will I live in this house but my family will be gone? Will I be homeless? All these logistics would go through my mind at 9 and 10 years old. So needless to say, there's a lot of trauma to unpack, and that doesn't even like get into like when I got older and abstinence culture and all that bullshit. But
oh, good Lord. That abstinence culture was, shoved down my throat from almost the time I was out of the womb. So I grew up similarly. We went to First Baptist. So I know that there's Southern Baptist, there's First Baptist. We were always a part of First Baptist churches. I never saw any of these movies, but it was still the same tenets that unless you accepted Jesus Christ into your heart, you were going to hell. And I never questioned that either. I knew what, about Judaism, but I didn't know about other religions either. And I never questioned whether Jesus was real or whether what I was taught in Sunday school and worship service and act teams and GAs and the RAs and the freaking youth group, I never questioned whether it was real, but I never ever sat down myself and actually read the Bible looking to see where all this stuff that they were telling us was real. And just how could it be heaven? How could it be actual heaven, this place of bliss, if that there are people who are burning, screaming, tortured for eternity, infinity, as you live in this utopic bliss, and that is what we were taught. And if you were of a different religion, or you were, and I think I knew what atheism was, you were going to that place. And, I was baptized at 12. I mean, the whole 9 yards. And Meliea, I actually had good experiences in church. There wasn't a lot of trauma. It was like, we had fun in the youth group. We went skiing, and, me and some of the youth group, on Sunday evening after our act teams and GAs and stuff, we would go out in the parking lot and, smoke a joint and go into evening worship service high, and then we'd go to Pizza Hut, when we could drive. But, for me, it was in my mid-20s when, the concept of sex within the confines only of marriage. I mean, because my parents were aberrant, for that. I mean, they were virgins on their wedding night. Great, wonderful, beautiful. That's their choice. But, them and all that was surrounded, me in the religious realm was, and certainly homosexuality was a sin. And I actually want to share something, and you might know this, you might know, but the literal written words in the original texts of what's the Bible, the word was arsenokoitai, which shows up. Okay, so it wasn't translated to mean homosexual. It was meant boy, like having sex with young boys, because it
Right.
was very commonplace for men to take boy lovers between the ages of 8 and 12. And also Nabin Shander means young boy molester. And those were the terms Nabin Shander and arsenokoitai that were used in the original translations, having that are now saying homosexuality when a man's lies with another man. So, you know, how to interpret that is, well, that's the literal way in which it was written. There's never been anything written against actual homosexuality. So Christians, you can do away with all the demonizing of the homosexual acts, because that's not even how it was. 1946 when it actually the words were changed to homosexuality and man lie with another a man. And it was actually 1983, I think, when it was changed in Germany. Don't quote me on that, because I'm taking all these facts and I might be confusing some of the actual dates. But guys, I mean, look it up. I look it up, and I didn't even know that until
Yeah.
recently.
Well, I didn't even know till a few years ago when I was studying the history of midwifery with a friend of mine that King James,
Hmm.
that of the King James version, that commissioned the King James version of the Bible. King James was a horrible person who could not was angry at his own sexual desires for other men,
Hmm.
and took that out on women. And so that King James was responsible for the burning of so many women that he defined as witches who were not. Like, these were just women who, you know, knew how to work with herbs,
Hmm.
who were midwives, who were,
Hmm.
and so I didn't realize, like, my friend told me that, and I was like, that can't be right. And this was just a few years ago. She was like, I was like, that can't be right. It can't be the same one. There must have been like a King James the Fifth or something, and it was the same one. I didn't even know that. The King James version was the only version that my church and school allowed us to use, and so, like, I didn't even know that history about the person who commissioned the version of the Bible that I had used my whole life. I mean, what a sham. What a
Right.
sham. So that, all those things have just been part of, like, and I think that's the hardest part for me sometimes, is realizing, like, I didn't know. I've learned so much on TikTok from this younger generation of deconstructors,
Yeah.
because they had the internet growing up, and they questioned this stuff and then went and looked up information. I never had a chance to do
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
And I didn't know that in Greek mythology and Roman mythology, and that there are stories that predate Christianity
Hmm.
that are just like Christianity, just like our stories in the Bible.
Oh,
But they
absolutely.
were just
Epic
different.
of Gilgamesh. I mean, there's
They were all co-opted. Like, it
mhm,
was, I had no idea.
right.
Like, I did not know. And of course, if I had been given this information and allowed to make my own decision, I would have made a very different decision. But
Absolutely.
I was 25 years old, 26 years old before, like, I ever got AOL internet, which was slow as fuck. So,
Oh
it
my
was,
God, I was right around the same age. Yeah.
yeah. So I was like,
Yeah.
that was the beginning of having that information at my fingertips. But, you know, it was just, I'm so impressed with the deconstructors the younger deconstructors of today. Like,
Mhm.
they are they are doing the thing that I don't know that I could have done. Just really
Right.
going against everything that they're being taught at a
Right.
very young age, and saying, no, I don't believe this. This is not
Mhm.
right.
Right.
And it's amazing. It's
Well,
absolutely amazing.
even when I was a kid and my parents would say certain things, and I would be like, and they wouldn't even consider themselves, they would say that they're not racist, but clearly, they were like, you can't bring, you don't bring someone black home, as a boyfriend or a girlfriend, because I have two younger brothers. And I'm like, and I would always, even back then, I'd be like, well, the Bible says love thy neighbor. It doesn't say love thy neighbor only if he's white. So even when my parents I did always question, because again, the way I felt, like that authentic way in which I felt, or it may, or my intuition, and maybe I didn't call it intuition back then, but it's like, was completely against what I was learning through them and learning at church. Um, and even though I didn't have like bad traumatic experiences, I still always question, because I'm like, that don't make sense. That don't make sense. And again, in my own deconstruction, it comes from nothing, that somebody said, oh, Stephanie, you should look into this, or you should ask yourself this, or no, it was literally because it was say, this is what is. And I'm like, you know what? I've been told that all of my life. I'm going to go find my own answers, and I'm going to the Bible. Where else would I go? Other than, because you cannot prove anything exists within in my mind, Christianity, without going to the Bible to look for the passages that validate what you're saying. So I'm going to go to the Bible. And that is like, you know, women are nothing but property. All through Old and New Testament, of either their fathers or other men. Our only value and worth is our virginity and our, reproduction. Slavery is rampant. The condoning, not even just the condoning and acceptance, but the promotion of it all through
Right. I mean,
Old
God
and
would tell people to go destroy
New
cities
Testament.
and take slaves.
Yes,
Take
yes,
take
yes.
the leftovers. They're yours.
And
Congratulations. Good
right,
job.
tell the slaves, obey your earthly masters as you obey your God. That's rampant throughout, Timothy, like New Testament. Why, when Jesus came, didn't he go, you know what, we need to revise the Ten Commandments, and we need to put, thou shalt not obtain ownership over another human being.
No, we can't
Um,
do that.
no, I mean, that's what makes
We
sense.
can't do that.
And even when you go back like to Old Testament, I mean, it's like, okay, so Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, Cain kills Abel. She allows them to have Seth. I'm sorry, God allows, well, God allows Eve to have Seth, but he casts Cain out to the land of Nod amongst all these other people. Where'd all those other people come from? There's nothing in the verses that tell us that there other people were created. We're all to believe that we are direct descendants from Adam and Eve. Well, but there's nothing that alludes to that, because all of a sudden there's all these people over in this other land that God's saying, no, you'll be protected, or I'll strike them down or hurt them or whatever. And it's like, wait a minute.
There's only
So
4 people in the world.
right, and then we're not even out of Genesis, and we're at Noah's Ark.
You're right. We're just
God's
wiping everybody out.
destroying everybody again.
Reset button. Kill
But he's
everybody.
all knowing and he's all powerful. Was he not all knowing to know that Adam and Eve would eat off the tree that he chose to put there? Why put the tree there to begin with? Just like let him
I
live in
wrote
a.
a whole poem about that.
I know, and I love it. I love it. But anyway, so I want to talk more about like your deconstruction, and like, you know, golly, with this abortion ban, this 6-week abortion ban in Texas. And it's like, most women don't even know they're pregnant by that time, especially a population that may not have access to being able to go purchase a pregnancy test. And, I talk about all of that.
So I have a little bit of a different way of looking at that than a lot of white women do right now.
Mm-hmm.
But first of all, let's just talk about God and abortion. And let's just remember that if you truly believe that the Bible is a literal fucking book, which I don't, but if you do, let's remember that God in Egypt wiped out all the firstborns.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's just remember that for a minute when we start thinking about, oh God, if that's the God you believe in, that's what He did. And so that's where I stop a lot of that conversation. But as far as what's going on in Texas right now, so Christianity was built on white supremacy. It's like you said, like
Yeah.
it was used to justify a lot of the actions that were happening. And so what's happening in Texas right now is not any different.
Mm-hmm.
So ever since COVID started, the number of babies available for adoption has gone down 10%. That's a big number. 10% doesn't sound like a lot, but it's huge.
In the grand scheme of things. Yeah.
Right. So the number of, adoptions have gone down. And I saw some screenshots from an adoptive group complaining about that would just make you want to barf. But so all you have to do is Google adoptions on the decline during COVID, and all this stuff will come up. It's all factual. I mean, it's just the facts. The number of women giving up their babies dropped 10% during COVID. And then the number of people actually getting pregnant as a whole dropped also. However, just a note, there's still the same number of older kids in foster care who need homes, but nobody cares about that.
Right.
But yeah, the number, so Black women in Texas represent 35% of maternal mortality.
Can you repeat that? You froze. Can you repeat that? You said
Black women in Texas represent 35% of their maternal mortality. So of the women who die in Texas during childbirth or the 42 days after, Black women make up 35% of that. However, Black women only represent 11% of live births in Texas. So the purpose of this bill is more white babies, period. Come at me if you want to, but that's the purpose of this bill. And let me tell you why. Because the government is not enforcing this bill, this law. It's vigilante citizens that will enforce this law, right?
okay.
So this law is about suing people and fining them and that kind of thing, but it's enforced by citizens who want those babies. And so they're going after the people who are doing abortions on white women. Be assured that, the fact that their Black maternal mortality is so bad in Texas, they already have enough systems of oppression in place to take care of that. This is their end. They are feeling threatened. All these people are deconstructing from Christianity. All these people are leaving. That's a whole voter base right there.
Mm-hmm.
Like these people that are leaving, like that's a lot of people. And the majority of people dying now of COVID are Republican.
Right.
Because that's the majority of people who are,
anti-vax.
Not comfortable with the vaccine. So they're losing people. If you're losing people, you have to replace them.
I wondered about that. I'm like, so why are these Republicans, because the majority of what you just stated, the majority of the population who wouldn't have access or wouldn't know. So where is, would be.
They don't care about them.
Right.
They don't care about them. They want to make sure that the women in their circles they want to make sure they're having the babies. And these Christian adoption, private adoption places stand at the ready to put these babies in good Christian homes where they will become good Christian Republican people who will vote for Christian morality to be made into law.
And the fact that we're still using such an archaic, rewritten a billion times to dictate how we pass laws and how we govern is, again, like mind blown.
Yeah. So this is a racist issue. it's not necessarily a women's issue, because they don't care about all women in this. This is a racist issue. So everybody that keeps saying like, this is the Handmaid's Tale, no, it's not. The Handmaid's Tale was all white people. That's a dystopian fiction novel. It's not the Handmaid's Tale. It's white supremacy. Black BIPOC folks have been fighting for reproductive justice for years. They've already had organizations where they've been doing this because they have been affected by it constantly. It's never stopped for them. It's now all of a sudden like white women are like, oh my God, you're my body, my choice. And it's like, no, honey, this has been going on for them a long time. And so we didn't care about it when it was just going on with them. And I'm including white feminism in that. We didn't care about that.
Right.
But, so now we're suddenly like, let's march. Let's do all the things. And it's like, where were we when BIPOC folks were saying, we need better laws, we need better access, they've been fighting and doing the work. They've had their boots on the ground the whole time. And so I won't be marching anywhere and yelling my body, my choice, because that's not what this is about. That's not about that.
Thank you for sharing that, because I didn't know.
I know, right?
I saw you share on Instagram, and you wrote just that women of color have been fighting this fight for a very long time.
They have lots of organizations in every state.
Can you tell me what we can Google to find that information?
Yeah, so Google reproductive justice organizations in whatever your city or town is, and you're likely to be able to find one, and give them money. They don't need your help. They definitely don't need white women to come in and tell them what to do, which is typically what happens. Or, white women will say, well, you're not respecting me and letting me do anything, so I'm going to go create my own organization, and that type of thing. No, just give them money. They know what to do. Just give them money and make yourself available if they need anything, but like, give them money. They've got the connections. They've got the resources. They know what to do. This is about, this is not about all women, and we have to really recognize that. But I probably spend more time on TikTok than I should, but on TikTok, that's not what what we're seeing. There's not a lot of even white feminists who are willing to look at this for the truth of what it is, and we'll never turn it around unless we're willing to sit with the discomfort of what our intuition is telling us is right.
And that gives me cold chills because, I think I learned the book White Fragility through one of your groups. And, and as I'm reading this, and even the people, white people who see themselves as progressive, still don't understand the systemic racism that they unintentionally create by the fragility of even discussing racism. Yeah. Oh, it doesn't exist because we have affirmative action and we have this system and we have this, and it's like that book. I mean, I sat there like this reading the book, just nodding my head the whole time. And it's not a woman's opinion. Like, I've had these arguments with people who refuse, like, no, that woman, a white woman write a book about racism. I don't need to hear her opinion. It's not opinions. It's based on facts. It's based upon what she experiences when she is asked to come into these companies and places to dismantle, racism and racist ideas. And then what happens is the white fragility, people's feelings. Oh no, I'm not. Stories of where I didn't grow up around black people. How can I be racist? I didn't grow up around people of color. How can I be racist? Because the world tells you that being white is ideal.
Right.
I mean, one recent example, and again, and I'm sitting here having a discussion with somebody who was arguing with me about it and debating, and then all of a sudden and I don't watch this show, I can't stand it, but The Bachelor, an advertisement for the upcoming season of The Bachelor, and there was a black man as the Bachelor. How many years have we been watching the pretty white people?
Well, and it's even just in small things.
Yes.
So my friend and I were, talking about getting dressed up to do something. And so I have these little things that I wear sometimes that are like pasties,
Uh-huh.
so that like if it's something kind of sheer or whatever, like everything's not showing through, which since then I just don't even care anymore. But I digress. But I was like, but my friend is black, and I was like, oh, well, let me just let you borrow some of mine or a set of mine so you can put them
Right.
on. They're white.
I know
They're
where you're
flesh
going. Yep.
colored. So I was like,
Hmm.
oh, you'll need to get you some. Well, I go on where I got them from. They don't make them. They don't make them in brown. They don't make them in black. They're only flesh colored. And so then I started looking at other brands.
White flesh
None
color.
of them, yeah, none of them made them in brown or black. So my friend's only option was to put on her breast
Yeah.
this skin color, which does not do the job because that's even more obvious through clothes, and for her, and it's those little things that like you realize the world leans white.
Yes, it does. Yes.
And if it leans white in those little things,
Hmm.
then of course it leans white in the big things. And so, listen, I look to other BIPOC women to, I listen and I learn, and I don't interact a lot because I don't expect them to educate me,
Right.
especially not for free. But, I try to amplify the voices of the BIPOC women who are being generous enough to us to school us a little bit. And but I, just on the last few days in TikTok, oh my gosh, the comments from white women have just been like, well, I'm not one of them. Well, I voted for Biden. I wasn't one of the 45% that vote. Like,
Hmm.
shh.
Right. Right. Right.
Like, that's just listen and learn. Just listen
Hmm.
and learn. Stop defending. Stop getting offended and just listen. Because we're not talking about being liked here.
Hmm.
They're talking about living,
Hmm.
staying alive, their children being alive. They're not having to worry about not getting home if they get pulled over in the middle of the night. Like,
Hmm.
this isn't about like your feelings or our
Right.
feelings. This is for them life and death. And so,
Hmm.
you know, and that's something that I, of course, never learned growing up in Christianity.
Hmm.
I never even noticed that I was just surrounded by people that look like me because it was just the default. There was nothing to
Exactly.
notice. It was the
Hmm.
default. This is what's right. This is what's normal.
Hmm.
And there's a bunch of us that, later have grown up that went to the same school that I did who, like, I've talked to them about deconstructing, and they never bought into the whole Christianity thing. And I was like, how did you not do that? And they were like, well, my parents didn't have me at the Christian school because they were
Hmm.
Christians. They had me at the Christian school because they didn't want me in a public school
Hmm.
where there
Yep.
was diversity. And so, like, that was the reality of that. And those are things I didn't realize until I got older.
Hmm.
Um, and because it was the default in my life. And that's just what it is. That's just my humanity. But I need to learn from that and evolve and grow.
Hmm.
But that's, like I said, that's why I'm not going to be marching, with a group of white women yelling "My body, my choice" when that's not the issue. I'm happy to contribute to things that are actually dealing with the issue. So
I love that. Yeah.
And that's the reconstruction.
Absolutely.
That's the
Yeah.
reconstruction. The reconstruction is doing the right thing. And
Exactly.
so, that's how we deconstruct and reconstruct at the same time, is by breaking the cycle that's been handed down to us generation after generation and doing something different.
Doing something different that brings about the change that's necessary, so that what everybody's out here screaming, Black lives matter. Black lives matter, because for the longest part of our history they haven't.
No, and they still
And
don't in a lot of ways.
yeah.
Like our maternal mortality, again, I'm a midwife, so that's my
Mhm.
frame of reference. Our maternal
There you go.
mortality statistics speak for themselves. And we have not prioritized equity. And every time somebody tries to, guess who comes at them first? White politicians who are Christian, who are deacons in their church, who oppose expanding programs, who oppose things that would bring equity.
Yes.
Or would at least begin to get that going. And so, part of the reconstruction is just being willing to sit with the discomfort of that, and then choose to do something different than what the generations before you have done. And that sounds very simple, but it's not.
No, because you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Meliea has that amazing TED Talk. Speaking up to power.
Well, that's
And it
why
is.
I'm on TikTok. Honestly, I'm not on TikTok because TikTok is really for like a younger generation, not mine. But I'm on there. I make videos on there to force myself to speak, because for so long I didn't feel like I had a voice. I didn't feel like my voice mattered.
Right.
I stayed quiet on issues that affected people around me. And so I get on there to make myself practice doing the right thing, and to make myself use my voice, and keep moving through that discomfort of that, because it's just because it's uncomfortable for me doesn't mean it's right. And so
Right.
I have to kind of push myself to do that. And so that's one of the ways that I do that, is making those videos. And and there's other ways too, but that's the way we learn to trust ourselves and listen to our intuition, is when we start pressing through and doing the things that we intuitively feel led to, but maybe feel kind of scared to talk
Right.
about or scared to do. At some point, you have to kind of move beyond that if you want to really tap in.
Right. I know that you have a child to pick up in like less than 30 minutes, but I really want to, talk about, what you do and how it is that you enable people to start to really trust themselves, trust their intuition.
Yeah.
As so much as that you've helped. Oops.
No, go ahead. I just lost you in my sound.
Hold on.
There you are. I just want to make sure it wasn't me.
No, I think I hit my heart, and I hit my mute button. But no, being part of your groups, I've chosen to allow what you do to, infiltrate and open up, the awareness that I have of what is possible. And I'm so appreciative of that. And I want you to to talk about what you do, and like, in your groups, and with, well, just the work, like everything that you bring to the table.
Yeah. And it's constantly changing. But when I left Christianity and decided, okay, this isn't for me at all,
Mm-hmm.
I felt, like I said, I was kind of like with a pile of rubble around me. I'm like, okay, what do I do with this building I just knocked down?
Mm-hmm.
Fuck. Like, I didn't. And so I really wanted to, I wanted something meaningful. I did enjoy sometimes the meaningfulness of certain things about religion. And so I started kind of tapping into nature, and that's how I started using the lunar cycle to kind of to sort of guide my energy. And I started learning about the different lunar phases. I'd never even learned about them in school at
Oh
all.
God, no. Yeah.
Um, and like seeing that, there was some energetic components of that. And so I started there, and that gave me something meaningful to work
Right.
with,
Mm-hmm.
something symbolic, something beautiful, something that's part of a universe that I can't explain, and
Exactly.
so I loved that. And then that led into other intuitive things, reading cards, obviously, and things like that. I started doing some coaching. I've done wellness coaching for a lot of my adult life, but I started doing some coaching, and I had groups. Bless you.
Thank you.
I had, I had groups that I was a part of, and I've done different things along the way. So if you are familiar with human design, I'm a manifesting generator, so I'm always doing something new. I'm always pivoting,
Yes.
um, and so I've done different things up until then. I have a course that I still, have out there.
Yeah.
That's how to use the lunar cycle to do this work. If that's your thing, I don't think everybody's thing is the lunar cycle. Some people find that groove and that connection in all of nature, and camping
Mm-hmm.
and trees and
Mm-hmm.
planting and growing, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. I just, people who it resonated with, did it with me.
Mm-hmm. I did.
Now, yeah. And so I lost my mother earlier this year. And that upended everything. That was a
Right.
whole nother shift for me. And so I have kind of that was when I started realizing I needed to talk more about the deconstruction part, because as she was passing, as she died at home under hospice care. And as we were going through that process with her, I was realizing a lot of the stuff was coming up for me
Mm-hmm.
from that era of my life, and that I needed to talk about that more. So right now, I'm kind of doing a lot of my own inner work, and just letting myself just be and letting myself grieve, and that type of thing. I still do readings and I still do
Mm-hmm.
coaching. In fact, I do them together. Um, I always like to do things differently too. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't coach in a traditional way. Now I'm coaching on an app called Marco Polo, where it's kind of like
Yes.
video, walkie-talkie back and forth, because people find it hard to designate an hour of their time to really be present. So I feel like it's
Mm-hmm.
easier to do it that way. Um, but that's what I'm doing now, and that's about all I'm doing. I am, Stephanie knows because she just got hers. I am doing a box
Yes.
this month. So I used to have a subscription box, and I haven't been doing that, but I'm doing one this month because it's my birthday and I'm going to be 50. And so we're doing a 50, themed full moon box. And so it's going to have um, uh, an oil in it with herbs in it that have, magical and amazing properties, and uh,
I'm
a
excited.
ritual, and there's a reading in the box.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you get to keep your cards. So I'm doing things like that right now, things that come with ease,
Yes.
because that's what I've always taught. So I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
practice what I preach,
Absolutely.
is
Absolutely.
doing things. And that's something I want to normalize, that, Christianity kind of taught me that I have to constantly be this certain type of person, and I have to constantly be improving and getting better and better. And I don't believe that. I believe that, we have times of growth, and then we have times where we just sit and just be where we are, and then we grow again. And of course, Christianity also taught, like, this is the one way you believe, this is the only way. And what I want to always be willing to say, you know what, that's not resounding with me anymore. Even if it's something I've been teaching for 2 years, I want to be able to say, you know what, that doesn't resonate with me anymore.
What else is possible?
And this is what's resonating with me now. And so this is what I'm talking about. Either if you feel it in your spirit too, then come on. If not, you'll find your thing.
Yeah.
Or you'll come on my posts and tell me I'm terrible. But so
I never see that. I'm being serious.
Yesterday.
Oh, gotcha. What was it on your public, like just Meliea Black page, or?
No, it was on my personal page. Somebody, talking about, why are you always bashing Christians, and your content. I used to really enjoy your content. It was, why can't you just bring light into the darkness instead of always criticizing? And I'm like, love and light has not set us free. We have plenty of people out there, love and light, rainbows, springtime, flowers, all that's great, but it has not changed the world. It has not brought the fabric of humanity back together. It has not repaired the threads. And, we have to be willing to look at the hard things. And I don't even call it the dark stuff, because it's not really dark. It's just different. It's different than what we've known. And so we have to be willing to go into those spaces, which means we have to keep talking about our experiences. And I'll keep talking about my experience. I'll keep talking about what I'm experiencing now. As people keep, saying, oh, I've experienced that too. Oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one. Oh, wow. There's a whole bunch of people out here like that. And like, yes, it's not just you. And so I'll keep talking about it. And, it's not that I think Christianity is, I think there's people who have been able to find purpose and things in Christianity.
My parents, your parents.
Yeah. And that's fine. But even Christianity itself needs to be able to admit it's done real harm.
Yeah.
And it's just like right now with what's going on in the world with like Christian nationalism and things like that, people will say, oh, my church doesn't condone that. Does your church speak out about it? Does it Does it actively like speak out against it? Well, no. Well, then you're complicit. Your church is complicit. That's the harm. Your church is doing harm. Like if you're not calling it out, these churches are just using that as their like, and I said this on my TikTok the other day, they were like, it's like, you and I were probably this friend, Stephanie. You have that one friend that will just say whatever, right? Like you got that one friend, they're kind of reckless. They'll just say it. They'll say the things that nobody wants to say out loud.
Yeah.
We were probably that friend. But they believe what we're saying, right? They believe us. They feel the same way we do, but they're scared to say it. They don't want the repercussions or the consequences of saying it out loud. So they're just going to like quietly stand behind us and clap while we say the thing. And that's what Christianity is doing right now. It's letting, by not calling out the harm, it's being complicit in that you're letting people speak for you. You're letting people represent you, and you're saying like, you just, we're just over here doing our thing. We're different. No, you're just letting your bold, a little bit reckless friend be the one to say the things you don't want to say.
Right.
But you still support them. You're still supporting the same things that they are supporting.
And that being said, I mean, we are who we are. I've always been this way. And that comes at the risk of being hated. being hurt, being ridiculed, but I would rather live authentic to myself than because I always say, if you live your life caring what other people think, and that inhibits you from acting, you are their prisoner. You are the prisoner of that which you allow to inhibit you from being your authentic self. And it is a scary place. It is a very scary, very scary place to be, to put yourself out there knowing that you are going to possibly encounter vitriol or hate or pain, or like we were probably witches that were burned.
Oh yeah,
I know I
would have been
was.
burned.
I know I was.
I would have been
But
burned.
but it's like, I still believe, I believe in reincarnation, because scientifically the energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It just transfers into another form. And I believe that my soul, which is that energy, has been, because I see that in my own life, in what I've dealt with in my own life, in this life. And I'm not going to get into too much detail about that. You had to read my autobiography, and Tyler always makes fun of me. No, I'm right. I've told you about that. I'm writing all about, because I'm writing about my life, because there is truth. There's value in me sharing my life and my experiences, as there is you. But we're bold enough to put ourselves out there, and it doesn't mean that we're perfect or we're doing it right.
Right.
But at least we're doing something.
And it doesn't mean I don't do it with my fucking knees knocking together in fear. Like,
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
women are always like, well, this is who you are. You're just brave and speak out. No, the fuck I'm not.
Right.
I am terrified. I hit send or I hit post, and then I have a whole panic attack. Like, and I have to go breathe somewhere because the trauma in my body is like coming out, the fear of consequences, the fear, all of that still comes out. But the thing is, especially, when we're talking about white women right now, which is what we kind of been talking about and what we are. So that's our experience. We've got to get wild. Like, it's time to stop being calm. It's time to stop being quiet. It's time to stop being palatable, which is what I told this person on my post yesterday. I'm like, hey, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I'm not changing to make you comfortable.
Right.
There's an unfriend and an unfollow button, and I wish you well.
Because remember, you used to be there.
Right. And so I get it. And, but like, we've got to, despite the fact that Joe Biden got elected.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, the work didn't just stop.
But more white women voted for Trump in this election than the first one.
Wow. I did not know that.
More. Wow. You know who saved us in this election?
I just got cold chills.
Black women. Black women were the people who saved us. They were the swing. They were the swing. They were what swung the vote. But more white women voted for Trump in this election than the last one. So white women, if you don't yell and march and holler, my body, my choice, if you're not really ready to like get in it, you got to be wild. You got to be outspoken. And that comes from your intuition. Your intuition is a wild place.
Yes.
It is like your intuition is the place that nobody has like, been able to like take up space in. All your baggage is in your mind and your subconscious and all that stuff. But your intuition is a wild place where it's uninhabited. It's just you. And so you got to be wild to get into that place. And that doesn't mean wild doesn't mean reckless.
It doesn't mean, you have to have a personality like
undomesticated. Like,
right.
You just got to be willing to get out there and do the wild things, which is speak out, use your voice, do things different than have been done before. Be willing to shift the tide, be willing to be part of the collective, be willing to care for other people, be willing to see that what you do is not just about, there's no such thing as personal freedom, individual freedom. Everything we all do affects each other.
Exactly.
And we
Thank
have
you.
to realize that, you know, and so that's the wild we need right now to turn things around. I hope we do it.
100% Meliea. And when you wake up and realize that again, your life is your life, and we experience good and bad, but if someone else is hurting, no matter how far away in proximity they are to you, and they don't have enough and they're barely surviving, it's just like the whole, if you're in heaven because you chose the right religion, and these other people that you love so much while you were on this earth are in hell, how are you really truly in heaven? How are you living in that bliss? And collectively, when we so I like to say that, one day when I was in organic chemistry and I was looking up at the periodic table, it occurred to me, and this was after I'd already had the epiphany of leaving organized religion, but I was like, everything that exists, which exists, is just different conglomerations of atoms from the periodic table. Hence, everything is one. Everything is of itself.
It
The
all comes back
camera,
to that, right?
yeah.
It
So
all
that's
comes
what,
back to
that's,
matter.
yeah, exactly. That's why even as I, spiritual atheists believe in prayer, because I do believe that if you're hurting, or there's travesty or pain, that, if this heart-centered, heart, like fervent
Mhm.
intention, because I'm connected to the conglomerations of atoms that make up that person who's in peril.
Right.
And I do believe that how I, focused consciousness, that affects that person, that affects, and can, be a form of a way of healing in some way, shape, or form.
Why else would we even have empathy? Why
Right.
else would we even be capable of it? I mean,
Right.
if we weren't supposed to fucking use it, why would we even be capable of it? And I realize there's people out there that don't seem like they're capable of empathy, but I'm just saying, like, why would we be capable of it if it wasn't something that we're supposed to use to keep us
Yes.
connected to each other? And
Thank
that's
you.
what we're all lacking right now.
That's beautiful.
And empathy comes from what? Intuition.
Yeah. Oh
It's
my God.
intuitive. Empathy is intuitive. And so so we do the things we do to fight the empathy when it makes us uncomfortable.
Hmm.
So we just have to learn to allow it and listen and trust ourselves, trust what we're feeling, trust what tune out all the other voices and trust.
Right.
And if we did that, we things would look very different right now.
Absolutely. And it takes people like ourselves having these conversations, putting the ideas, and I also say that we even have our own personal experiences with this, is that you can't possibly see someone else's from someone else's perspective unless you've actually had those experiences. So while it's easy to judge and say you're wrong or I'm right, you can't, because you're only right relative to what you've experienced or
Mhm.
allowed yourself to understand, or even embrace or learn. Um, but what you can hope for is just to keep putting yourself out there, your voice, your heart, authentically, even if it's someone who completely is in opposition to you, and hopes that that is evolving. So what we're doing is, I'm not stupid enough to believe that we could or naive, maybe not stupid, I don't like that word, but naive enough to believe that what we see as as something that we should achieve, or try to attain, is remotely possible in our lifetime. But that's not to say that it's not possible in 100 years or 500 years or even 30 years. Because think of 100 years ago when you and I didn't even, or well, women didn't have the right to vote, or um, you know, where did that come from? It didn't just automatically appear. It came from people having that idea and that forethought of, we got to put ourselves out there because we
Mhm.
need, and we're going to continuously evolve. And the only way we can evolve and get to that place where that you and I hold in our hearts is to keep planting those seeds,
Mhm.
and let it, because again, you and I had a certain way of thinking and being based upon our limited reality and experience of what we were taught, and we thought we were doing the right thing. And then all of a sudden something happens, and it expanded our awareness of what is possible. And that's just all it takes to keep going. So, but you've got a kid to go pick up in like 1 minute. But God, we could. There's so much more I wanted to even talk to you about, but you'll have to come back for another episode. Part doggone two, girl. Thank you so much. We had several comments here. Thank you, Jacqueline and Joe Artman and Siobhan. And we had a Facebook user. They're probably commenting from my private Facebook group, and I can't see their name. Thank you, everyone who was joining and commenting. And guys, we're gonna post all the ways that you can get a hold of Meliea, post a link to your course. I mean, I've got these things in the description, but I want them posted as comments, and the things that you've shared, reproductive justice organization, Googling that in where your city is and just send them money. I've got so many things written down here. I'm going to post those in comments. This was a very empowered conversation. Thank you, Meliea, for being here.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
You're so welcome. Well, all right, guys. Well, hold on one second. You stay right here. Guys, thank you again so much for being a part of Empowered Conversation. See you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.